Immigration was part of President Trump's opening message in 2016, and it is his closing argument for Republicans 2 years later. In the past week, the president has said he'll send up to 15,000 troops to the southern border to try to stop a caravan of migrants from entering the country, that he wants to build tent cities at the border for asylum seekers, and that he wants to end birthright citizenship. Before heading to Missouri on Thursday, the president made another immigration announcement.
Under this plan, the illegal aliens will no longer get a free pass into our country by lodging meritless claims in seeking asylum. Instead, migrants seeking asylum will have to present themselves lawfully at a port of entry. So they're going to have to lawfully present themselves at a port of entry. Those who choose to break our laws and enter illegally will no longer be able to use meritless claims to gain automatic admission into our country. We will hold them for a long time if necessary.
Caitlin Dickerson covers immigration for the New York Times and joins me now. Caitlin, always great to have your insight. Let me ask you about asylum seekers and where it is when they are seeking entry into the United States. Do they often go to these ports of entry?
You see a mix, and you can understand why. You know, if you think about people who are leaving Central America or Mexico, many of them are unemployed. They don't have electricity. They don't have the internet. They're uneducated. And so a lot of them just don't realize that they have to go, or that they're encouraged to go to a specific office along the border. And even if they did know it, they wouldn't know where to go. They wouldn't know where the office was. So that's why you see a lot of people. You do see, though, that across the board, people are seeking out border agents wherever they present themselves and requesting asylum in that way. So traditionally, you've been able to request asylum anywhere. And as we just heard, the president wants to change the rules and force people to go only through this one particular avenue.
Sometimes you have this issue of asylum seekers conflated with illegal immigration. But to be clear, asylum is part of legal immigration, is it not, Caitlin? Is it clear if the president's plan for asylum, the change to it, is legal?
It's true that the asylum process is a legal one, and so when a legal one, I should say. So when people try to come and they claim asylum, they're not doing anything against the law. What the president wants to do does change, the way that current immigration law is written. So that would have to be changed. It also could potentially violate international human rights conventions, and so those will have to be vetted and checked because, as we said, this is a dramatic departure from what's happened in the past. And what's also important to point out is that we've learned some changes this administration has already made at the ports of entry, having actually encouraged people to seek asylum in between ports of entry, to just cross the border and seek a border agent out. And that's exactly what the president is now trying to outlaw. So, it's forcing people into this sort of increasingly smaller and smaller sort of set of requirements that are going to be really hard for people to meet.
Because I know there have been reports of people trying to present themselves legally at those ports of entry only to be turned away, essentially.
Exactly. So we just read an Inspector General report that came out a couple of weeks ago that found that this other process, it's called metering, which is where, the administration has placed limits on the number of people who can request asylum at a port of entry each day, have forced all those people who are turned away to go around the ports of entry. That's now what's going to be illegal. And so you can see how it's really putting people between a rock and a hard place.
Let me ask you about birthright citizenship. You've been reporting on that this week. The president wants to end it as a way to limit immigration. And I wonder if you can explain for us the process. What is it for those parents to get citizenship after their child is born here in the United States?
This is a really hard process. You're talking about the anchor baby myth. That's sort of the main concern that's animating the president's plan to get rid of birthright citizenship. So the anchor baby, it refers to this idea of a child of an undocumented immigrant sponsoring their parent for a green card after they gained citizenship. Here's the problem with that suggestion and why very, very few people actually end up doing it. Anybody who's been living in the United States illegally faces an automatic, for as long as would be required to apply for this green card application, faces an automatic 10-year bar before they can apply for a green card. So a 10-year bar when they would have to leave the United States and then be able to come back and get a green card. You won't be surprised to learn that almost nobody actually does that, right? There are a couple of small exceptions that can be made. One is for people who are children of military service members. They can apply for a waiver. Also, a parent who can prove that their parent or their U.S. citizen spouse would face extreme hardship if they left the country for 10 years. Those people can also apply for a waiver, but they're very rare circumstances, and that really makes the anchor baby in large part a myth.
So Senator Lindsey Graham says that he's going to introduce legislation to end birthright citizenship. What would be the consequences of ending that?
It would be dramatic. I mean, this is one of the oldest tenets of American democracy, right? I've spent the week talking to people who gained birthright citizenship, and, you know, they really think of the two things as one of the same. It's not that this is part of the American democracy, but it is. It is the fabric of this country. And, you know, the president has said we're the only country that grants birthright citizenship. That's not true. We're one of at least 30 countries that does. But the idea is to sort of not punish an individual based on the choices of their parents, to look at each person sort of with fresh eyes and give them every opportunity as, you know, their peers. So it would be a really dramatic shift that would certainly be challenged in court. So we're very far away from actually seeing something like that implemented.
So if you take a step back, so Pew actually has a new report out today saying that the number of babies born to unauthorized immigrant parents in the U.S. fell to 250,000 in 2016, the lowest figure since 2000. Such births have decreased 36% since hitting a peak of about 390,000 back in 2007. So the trend line would suggest that number is going down. How urgent then would this seem to be with respect to, the issues that are out there for lawmakers to tackle?
Not terribly urgent, and that trend you point out, it corresponds, right, with the fewer and fewer people who are coming into the U.S. illegally each year, despite what you hear very often in the news, and it's confusing for people. I think part of the urgency, the perceived urgency, is this conflation that you started our conversation talking about with asylum, which is a legal process, versus trying to sneak across the border. We're just seeing less and less people do that each year, and so, of course, as a result, we're seeing fewer and fewer of them having babies.
Right. Caitlin Dickerson, so much to delve into and to continue to watch. Thank you so much for stopping by. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.